I recently had the opportunity to join Intrepid Travel for a national parks tour through America's Southwest. It was simply put one of the best travel experiences I've ever had. Intrepid Travel does things differently, which is why I'm so excited to have Dr. Susanne Etti join me. Dr. Etti is the Global Environmental Impact Manager of Intrepid Travel, the world's largest adventure travel company. She has a PhD in natural science, specializing in climate change and vector-borne diseases. Her work at Intrepid Travel centers around global decarbonization, specifically around climate change performance, biodiversity, carbon reporting, and transitioning the business to the low carbon economy. She joins me today to discuss how Intrepid is approaching travel differently and making a difference. Welcome to the show, Susanne.
Thank you. Lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I was blown away by this trip. And I mean, there's a couple of reasons. I hadn't traveled in a while, so it was great to be out in nature, of course, which is the best therapy you can get. But I was really impressed with the fact that Intrepid is a BCorp travel company, which seems you're a bit of an outlier, really, because being BCorp is not easy, right?
It's not easy at all. So we got, it's a very time-intensive process. You basically take your whole business under the microscope. You look at 5 different impact areas, and that includes your community, your environment, your governments, but also your workers. And then it's around, per assessment, around 200 questions. And so it's a lot of work. I look after with my climate hat on after the environment. You have to reach a minimum score of 80 plus, and you have also to recertify every 3 years. So we actually did the recertification during the darkest hours properly for the travel industry and got recertified with a new score, which was 10% higher than the first one in 2018, which is exciting.
That's absolutely incredible. What drives this mission? Like, where does this come from, this purpose that Intrepid has?
I think it really comes back to the humble beginnings, which were in 1989, especially if you get a chance to meet our founders. They've really been passionate about creating positive change through the joy of travel and really creating experience that benefit both people but also the planet. So you can see that planet is already core back in 89. And in fact, their first business plan back then included already donations to communities long before they were even making any money.
That's incredible. And, you know, one of the things about travel that's sort of this conundrum we find ourselves in with climate change is that, you know, there's all these drawbacks of travel is in terms of the climate, but to stop traveling means that people on the other end who rely on travel will suffer. So it's finding that balance that's so challenging. So what are some of the things that Intrepid has implemented to ensure that you're being responsible to the people and to the climate?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And we've definitely seen that in the last 2 years when the pandemic really stopped our sector. But so it is really important, how do you approach traveling more responsible? So as a business, actually, our climate journey began already back in 2005, where the business senior managers read a book called The Weather Maker by Tim Flannery, which was really at the time about the history and future impacts of climate change. And that kind of fast forward feedback, including from our customers, we actually became the world largest tour operator that is carbon neutral in 2010. And since then, we have been carbon neutral, which means we actually measure our impact on the environment for our offices, but also for our trips like the one you have been on. We're actually measuring the transportation, the accommodation. And going forward, we will also account for the meals that you consume as part of the Intrepid trip. But then in 2018, we also realized 2018-19 that carbon neutrality is not enough anymore, and we need to do more to reduce our impact. And we then became in 2020 the first tour operator in the world with an emission reduction target. And what that means, it's really about having a North Star, a 15 years target to really look at how quickly and how much do we need to reduce our emissions across the business, so that we still can operate trips, and we continue to operate trips in all these countries around the world, but we are minimizing our impact on the environment. So we're looking at in our offices to go 100% renewable, but on the trips is to remove flights where it's safe, where there's ground transport, for example, in place, to look out for accommodation that is using renewable energy, using local transport, just to give a few examples.
I think it's important to highlight here that because of what you do and how you run your trips, that the people you partner with, like the hotels and travel and so on, you're sort of putting a downward pressure on them to also participate in this, which has this wonderful sort of effect for everybody, really. And so what's the feedback you get from the partners that you work with on the ground?
No, that's a really good point, because when you kind of measure your impact on the environment, you can look at your direct emissions from running your vehicles that you own, from purchasing electricity, but a big chunk in our case, especially because we're asset light, 80% of our emissions actually sit in our value chain or in our supply chain. And that's exactly what you just referred to, Candace, is that it's about our suppliers, for example, we're working with, the vehicles we're leasing, hotels we're staying in. And it's definitely, we're looking at collaborating. It's about working together. We are the world's largest BCorp. We are carbon neutral. I'm doing this work, as you described, full-time in Intrepid, but many of our suppliers are SMEs. So they're small businesses. They might not, especially following the pandemic, have the resources to invest in paying for consultancies or having a dedicated RB manager. So it's also around collaboration. How can we help them to join us on that journey to address climate change, share resources, and really help them along the journey?
I think what really struck me about this trip was because I think about the climate daily. I suffer from eco guilt every day. I just, I think about every move I make. And so what I really loved about it is all of that thought was kind of done for me. And it was that pressure was alleviated on the trip, which felt so good. I didn't have to think about it. It was done for me. But the other thing was that I think people think when you start to think about the environment, you're going to give up amenities and experiences, and there was just it was such a rich experience. That's really wonderful. So how do you go about sourcing these wonderful experiences? Because what a job that must be. And can I apply?
Yeah, I will pass your compliment on to the team, because obviously for my part is very much around kind of providing low carbon guidelines. So that's around kind of education and providing staff with the information to make low carbon decisions. But then, of course, there's these amazing teams, product team, there's contractor team. They take that knowledge and that then really to the ground and to develop those trips, and like the one that you just experienced. Because really, especially in the last 2 years, we have really kind of focused on the slow travel, looking at more hiking and walking trips, because we know they have inherently a smaller footprint, because it's human powered. You have maybe a transport car, but that's about it. If you're camping, they might not, if there's no AC, for example, no fridge, etc. And that's really then kind of also looking at the suppliers. Who can we partner with that have similar values, that have a smaller footprint, that is a woman-led enterprise, for example, or for example, in some countries, we're supporting community-based tourism, so that you are staying in a community-based accommodation for the night. So it's really the talent of product team, contracting team to develop those itineraries, but it's all really kind of to tread lightly. And as you said, to provide that experience to the customer, but also looking not just in environment, but also the social side, which is equally so important, that the dollar spent stays in the community and destination, providing education, empowering women, just to mention a few.
Well, I'm hooked. I'm a huge fan. I have a blog post up on my travel blog, Life in Pleasantville, about my experience with the National Parks Tour in the United States. I think it's important to note that Intrepid Travel is group travel, which is also a really fun way to meet people around the world. I have to tell you, it started out with strangers, ended with a bunch of friends. Really love that. So I want people to be able to find out more about you. I can't say enough about all of your amazing trips and that you offer around the globe. So where can people go to find out more?
So it's really kind of going to intrepid.com. And we also have social channels, and all that information you find at Intrepid. And that's really the best place to find out more about the tours that are there, walking, cycling, and much more. But also, if you're interested to find out more about our climate action work, I suggest you check out intrepid.com.
All right, incredible. Thank you so much.